Hey, what's going on? It's Kevin, the Breakup Doctor, and a few days ago, I actually sent out a survey after getting swarmed with like hundreds of emails from people asking me for advice on their situations. So, what I decided to do was rather than answering every single email, I decided to record a video series where I actually answer the most common questions I get in each video. So, in today's video, I'm going to answer one of the most common questions. Should I try to get back with my ex or should I just move on? This was like the number one thing that people were really struggling with. So, if you're like most of the people who filled out the survey, if you're like most of the people who just, come to me for help and guidance, then you're probably still shocked that your relationship is over. You probably still can't believe that, it's really done, that they could just walk away from your life so easily, especially after all you've been through. You can't believe that they could just do that to you as if this didn't even mean anything to them, and I totally empathize with what you're feeling and how it can seem so sudden and just unexpected of them just walking out of your life and then turning into this like brick wall that is totally unreceptive to anything you do. Trust me, I've been there way too many times, and it's really hard, and if you're anything like me, then what you've probably tried to do is to get them back, to text them and call them over and over again, to try to get some sort of reason out of them, to try to get some kind of response, to try to work things out, to profess your love for them, to tell them how important they are to you so that you can resolve things and, finally get back together again. But, the worst thing and the hardest thing is when they're totally closed off to all your attempts, when they don't even want to hear anything that's coming out of your mouth, when they're just totally cold and distant, and it just feels like you're ramming your head again and again into a brick wall. Like you can't get through to them no matter what you do, and it eats away at you. It makes you angry and frustrated, and quite frankly, it's exhausting. It drains you, it depletes you, and it takes away all your energy as you try to make things work, as you try to resolve things, only to have them just, quite frankly, not even give a shit, like act like you're just nothing. And it really screws with your sense of like, like, was that even real? Did, like, it's just, it throws you for a loop because you're not sure if, like, you were even experiencing the same level of depth and connection if they could just treat you that way. So I totally get where you're coming from. You're probably wondering if this is even worth it, or if you should even try to get them back, or if you should just forget about it and move on. And you probably feel confused and conflicted about what you should do. It's like there's a constant battle going on between your head and your heart. Your logic tells you that you should just forget about it and move on because they're being this way. And then your heart tells you that you want nothing more than to just have them in your arms again, to kiss them, to hold them, to love them, and to be with them again, and to get your relationship back to how it used to be. But, there's this tug of war going on, and you don't really know what to do. If you're like most people, you probably reach out to your friends and family for advice, and you spend hours and hours telling them the story of how it all happened, going into every little detail about, they said this and then I did that and then they didn't respond and all this kind of stuff. And if your friends and family are like most people's friends and family, like my friends and family, they probably just tell you that, your ex is being a bitch or an asshole and that you deserve better anyway. And while that's nice and comforting and even somewhat reassuring, it doesn't really help you deal with all the pain you're feeling. Now, of course, you might talk to people that aren't quite that harsh. Maybe they won't call them, a bitch or an asshole, but they'll basically just tell you to move on and forget about it. Or they'll say things like, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And while that may seem, nice and comforting, it doesn't really help you figure out what you should do. It doesn't actually give you any more clarity on what to do because you're left wondering and waiting for some sort of sign of whether it's meant to be. You keep dragging out this kind of dysfunctional dynamic of you and your ex going back and forth, hot and cold, blowing mixed signals, and it becomes this toxic kind of thing, and you end up analyzing every little thing that happens. You keep running it through your head, talking to all your friends, constantly just updating them on what's going on, and it's exhausting. It drains you and it depletes you, and it doesn't really help. In fact, it only hurts you. It keeps you stuck in this cycle of uncertainty for longer than you have to. And at some point, you get really sick of just going round and round in your head, reading into it, trying to figure out what's going on. And you reach out to some of your other friends for some advice, or maybe your family. And maybe this time they tell you something else. Maybe they tell you that there's plenty of fish in the sea. And while that's slightly reassuring, while that's kind of helpful to know that there are indeed other fish in the sea, the problem is that you're not really in the sea. You haven't been in the so-called sea for quite a while. You've had your whole self invested in this relationship, invested in your ex and everything that you've shared together. So, you're not really in the sea. You're in this like desolate desert where you're all alone and you're hurting, confused and frustrated and unsure and uncertain, and it weighs you down and you don't want to keep dealing with it. You just want to, a part of you just really wants to just like crawl up in a ball and forget about everything, to just kind of wipe it out of your mind and to just have the freedom to not worry about this for at least a day, to just not let this consume you because it's so damn draining. And, if you're there right now, then, my heart totally goes out to you because I've been there myself and I know just how devastating it can be. And I know that, from that place, hearing things like there's plenty of fish in the sea, it's probably like the last thing you want to hear, because you don't want to, try to force yourself to put on a happy face and go out and try to meet people. You might do that. You might get, coerced by one of your friends to go out and get drunk just to kind of take the edge off a little bit or get your mind off it for a night and kind of let go. But, it ends up being a drag. You're not really present. You're not really fully there and having fun. You're still preoccupied. It's weighing you down, and it's kind of creating this sense of heaviness in you. You still wake up in the morning alone, hurt, frustrated, not knowing what to do. You don't really want to go out and keep trying to meet other people in order to get over it. All you really want is just another chance with your ex to show them that you've changed, that you guys can make it work. And I totally get how, this is kind of like the most frustrating thing in the world, is to want to get through to them and to have them just put up these walls that you can't penetrate no matter what you do, to have them be just so closed off. It sucks, and I've been there. So, one day you just get sick of it all. You don't know what to do. You feel lost and hopeless. So nothing you do seems to work. So, you turn online for advice, like most people do for a lot of things these days, and you look for answers, you look for some sort of solution, and you scour the whole internet hoping that you'll find something that'll actually help. Yet, nothing you find really speaks to the pain you're feeling. No one seems to really get what you're feeling. Most people just give you a bunch of generic advice like, oh, just go out with your friends, or work on yourself, or go out to the gym, or, sometimes they'll give you bubblegum advice like, oh, just let yourself sulk at home with a jug of ice cream. Well, needless to say, that doesn't really do anything. It doesn't really help. Yet you keep looking and you keep trying to find something that actually will, only to come across a bunch of generic advice that you already heard from your friends and family. Things like, oh, just give it time. After all, you know what they say, time heals all wounds. Yet, if you're anything like me or the people that come to me for guidance, then you're probably sick of just waiting for time to do something. You're sick of waiting for this thing to just go away or resolve itself on its own. You feel this sense of angst and panic, and you just want to do something to resolve it, to make the pain go away, just anything. You don't want to wait. And I totally get where you're coming from. It sucks to wake up in the morning and have this thing weigh you down, to just feel so heavy by this whole thing, to feel like you're constantly taking one step forward and two steps back, and to feel like there's nothing you can do. But you keep on pressing and searching, looking for advice to actually help you deal with this. And maybe one day you actually stumble upon some advice on how to get your ex back. One of those magic ebooks that promise you to show you some magic blueprint to get your ex back in your arms again. Now, maybe a part of you is really excited because it's what you've been hoping for, it's what you've been wanting. And yet, a part of you is a little bit skeptical because you've already tried so many things and they haven't really worked. So, the last thing you want to do is spend money on some ebook or some course, and have it not work, and to really be rejected by your ex again. Because I know how much that sucks. I know how much it is to lay your heart on the line and to reach out to them and not get any sort of response whatsoever. So, I totally get your apprehension there, and I totally get how you might feel a little bit silly having to turn to the internet for advice, or having to buy some sort of program on how to get your ex back. I get that, but I want you to know that there's really no shame in seeking out help on this topic, because we're never really taught this stuff anywhere. We don't learn this in school. We don't learn this from our friends. There's really no formal education on what to do when your ex breaks up with you, or when you lose somebody you love. It's tricky because you get all this conflicting advice everywhere. Your friends are telling you to move on and forget about it. Then you stumble across all this advice online telling you can get them back no matter how hopeless it seems, and even if you're the only one trying. And quite frankly, you don't know who to believe. You don't know what to do. You don't know where to turn, and it's really just weighing you down. And at the end of the day, no one really knows the depth of your relationship. No one really knows what you guys share together. All your friends and family heard was just all the bad times, all the fights, all the stress, all the drama, all the bad things that happen. They don't know about the good times or about the love you shared. And it's unfortunate that sometimes it's been so long since the relationship has actually been good that it's hard for them to even remember that. It's hard for you to remember that. It's hard for you to even think about anything but all the stress and drama. And it gets hard to know what to do, because your emotions are driving everything, and they're sending all these mixed signals, and one day you feel like this, then another day you feel like that, and it's exhausting. So what I want to do is I want to give you something that will help you get clarity on whether you should move on or forget about it, whether you should step up and try harder, or whether you should just ditch it and move on. I do have to say that I can't really tell you what you should do without actually speaking with you one-on-one and getting to know a little bit more about your relationship. But what I can do is I can share some valuable lessons that I've learned from working with thousands of people for over the past 10 years, specifically centered around this particular issue. There's lots of relationship coaches or even counselors and therapists that focus on a lot of different things. But for the past 10 years, I've been focusing exclusively on relationship breakups. Now, that's not to say that I don't do a lot of other stuff. People come to me for a lot of different things as well. But the majority of my practice as the breakup doctor is focused on helping people survive a breakup and either repair their relationship or rebuild themselves after a broken relationship. So, I want to share you some lessons that I think will really, really help you. But before I do, just got to make a quick disclaimer is that, if you're in a physically or emotionally abusive relationship, go out and get professional help. That's serious stuff. It's not meant to be taken lightly. It's nothing to joke about. Go get help. Okay? All right. So now that we got that stuff out of the way, basically, I recommend, unless you're in an emotionally or physically abusive relationship, is to give it at least one more shot. Why? Because you can always say screw it. You can always throw it away. You can always say, forget about it. They want nothing to do with me. They don't want to work on this. I'm just moving on. But that way, you can actually do it while feeling confident about your decision, knowing that you at least tried. Otherwise, you're just going to live with regret. You'll keep second guessing yourself. You'll keep wondering if you did the right thing. And, it's just not going to be a very easy split. I've had so many clients that have driven themselves nuts trying to figure out, oh, what if I did this, or what if I said that, or, I just figured out this thing that I was doing to kind of sabotage the relationship, and now that I've learned it, I can go back and fix it. So I don't want you to get caught up in all those thoughts and regrets and worries and concerns. So it's best to exhaust all your options now. That way, even if it doesn't work out, at least you'll know. At least you'll know with some sense of confidence and certainty that you did give it all you could, and that you've chosen to move on, and it's the right choice. And another reason that it's so important to at least give it a try before you abandon it is because a lot of people leave relationships because they just don't know what to do. They're frustrated with how things are. They don't like how things are going, but they don't know how to get things back on course. They don't know how to resolve conflict, of how to solve the problems in the relationship. And so they end up leaving because they simply don't know what to do. And, you should never leave a relationship because you don't know how to resolve conflict. You should never leave because you don't have the skills. Skills can be learned. Communication and things like that are learnable. Compatibility is not. So you should never leave a relationship because you guys can't communicate. Communication is a learnable skill. Compatibility, like I said, is not. And what's funny is that once you learn how to communicate, a lot of those perceived incompatibilities actually get resolved. Once you can really communicate and get on the same page about things, you realize that those really aren't the kind of deal breakers that you thought they'd be. And you learn how to kind of work through them and not let them tear you apart. So, I really recommend upgrading your own skills first and taking the right approach in saving a relationship before you decide to discard it and abandon it, because that's always an option. That's always on the table. You can do that. But at least take an educated approach first and go about saving the relationship the right way. See, most people go about it totally wrong. They act needy and desperate, and they do all these things. I mean, that's a whole topic for another video, and I'll cover that at some point as well. But for now, I just want you to realize these two distinctions between compatibility and communication. These are really two crucial dimensions in a relationship, and you really got to consider where the fundamental gap in your relationship is. And, I've had lots of people that have ended up saving their relationship after upgrading their skills in communication, after learning the right approach to take, when communicating with their partner. And a lot of them have rebuilt their relationship even better and stronger than they were before. Some of them have even gotten engaged and married, and they're happier than ever. When I talk to them now, they're just so happy. It's amazing to witness. Now, with that said, I've also had tons of clients, probably more clients on this end of the spectrum, that have actually moved on and found someone else that's actually 10 times better for them than their ex. It's a better fit that makes them happier and that they're more compatible with. But, they had to go through this period of suffering, of separation, of anxiety to really figure out if this was right for them. And then using what they learned from this experience, they were able to get clear on what it is they really want out of a relationship, what's important to them, and how they can get that. So, I know the idea of meeting someone else is probably like so far out there. You don't want to do that. The only person you want in your life is your ex. I get that. I'm just kind of sharing both ends of the spectrum from who I've worked with, what I've encountered, and to show that, even if it does come out to be scenario number 2, where you do have to move on and get on with your life, it's not the end of the world. I know it feels like that way. Trust me, I've been there, and it just feels like the walls are caving in and you can't go on without this person. I get it. but you can and you will if that's what it comes down to. But, first you want to make sure that you exhaust all your options before you jump to any conclusions. You want to make sure that you gave this an honest and earnest effort. So, that way, if it does come to the point of saying your goodbyes, you can do that from a place of total confidence and certainty, from knowing that you genuinely tried, you used the right approach, and you made an effort to work on the relationship, and they weren't receptive to it. It'll make it easier for you to move on that way, instead of beating yourself up, wondering, maybe I should have done this or that. So I'll go ahead and share some of those best approaches in my next video, so that you can kind of get an idea of the right way to respond and the wrong way to respond. And I'll show you exactly how to handle a breakup so that you actually have a chance of getting your ex back. See, most people go about saving a relationship totally wrong. They just act on impulse. They do things that feel natural and intuitive to them, and these things end up pushing their ex away even further without even realizing it. They push them away, they make them lose attraction, respect, and a lot of these things. And not only do they push them away, they can actually sabotage your chance of ever being friends with them in the future, if that's what you decide you want to do. I know lots of people realize that, maybe it's not for them, but they just value that bond and that connection so much that they don't want to lose them altogether. They just want to be friends with them. So, the way you handle the breakup, the way you communicate, the way you carry yourself through this time will determine whether you have a chance of getting them back, whether you have a chance of being friends with them, and whether you'll actually be able to get over them easily and gracefully, or whether you're going to stay stuck and suffering on them for months and years, like a lot of people do when trying to get over a breakup. So in my next video, I'll share some best practices and some really dangerous mistakes to avoid, just by reading some of the survey responses and seeing how you've been dealing with it. Kind of up to date, I can see a lot of these dangerous mistakes already happening, and I'll be sure to address them in my next video so that you don't do anything that pushes them away without even knowing it, because I know that's not what you want, but it's a little bit counterintuitive. The things we naturally want to do are the problem. I'll go over this a little bit more in my next video, and also share some really embarrassing mistakes that you want to avoid so that you don't end up having some things that you can't take back, some words that you can't undo, because there's lots of people that end up showing this weird and desperate side of themselves to their ex, and they can never redeem themselves in their eyes again. So, I think that gives you a little bit of a teaser about what I'm going to be talking about, but I'll go into it in a lot more detail. And if there's any other questions or concerns that you have for me, please go ahead and fill out the survey right below this video. I'll post a link to it again. It's the same one that I emailed out. So if you haven't had a chance to fill it out, go ahead and do that now. I'll do my best to answer all your questions in my next videos and really, try to make a valuable video series for you where I answer all your most pressing challenges and concerns and really try to help you. So, until then, do your best to really stay grounded and composed. Don't let yourself get reactive and kind of get triggered, because that's the kind of stuff that'll make you do things that you're going to regret later. Trust me. And the way to stay composed, it's a little kind of nugget of wisdom that I tell all my clients, is that they can break your heart, but they can't break your spirit. You have what it takes inside of you to get through this. You can survive this. Don't let them break your spirit. Don't let them break your spirit to live, to survive, to thrive, to go on. They can break your heart. They can hurt you. That's part of the risk of entering a relationship. But they can't break what's inside of you, what's most true and real and authentic for you. That can't be taken. So try to tap into that part right there and stay grounded in that. And I'll share some more kind of best practices and kind of slip-ups, mistakes in my next video. Until then, go ahead and fill out that survey like I said. If this video has helped you, please leave me a comment below. I love reading all your comments. I love hearing how this stuff has impacted you and how it's helped you, what what kind of doors it's opened, how it's how it's benefiting you. It's why I do this, is to be able to contribute, to give back, and to make a difference in your life. So if this has impacted you, please leave me a comment and let me know. And if you have some questions that you want to get answered, click the link below. There's a survey there. I'd be happy to answer that in my upcoming videos. So I'll talk to you then.